So again, thank you for finding all of my materials and reaching out. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So let me know. So I don't know if this has changed, but there are actually a lot of MPH programs that have rolling applications or actually late deadlines. Um, they might not be sort of the top 10, public health schools in the US at the major universities, but I do know of other schools who do have rolling applications or later applications. So I would look into
Mm.
um, maybe more schools. And I can send you this link, but if you go to the US News sort of like rankings of public health schools,
Mm.
it'll actually give you a list of all the public health schools that exist and their rankings in the US. And then you should just look up each one of those and see when their deadlines are. And I think there's, at least when I was applying, there was a handful of those schools that took applications like well into January, February. And I've heard of
Mm.
students even applying like even later than that. So I think there are some programs with more flexible deadlines that you might be able to look into. And worst case scenario, you can always, I mean, I know this isn't always a great option, but wait until next year this time to
Yeah.
apply. But that would put you off a whole year. So I understand the hesitation, but there might be some programs that have a slightly um, delayed or just a later application deadline for MPH programs, definitely. Because if you're applying to master's programs, I actually submitted a resume, I think, at that point, because I didn't really have
Mm.
any like academic papers or anything. So I actually did a kind of your traditional one page, more employment job type resume for my MPH.
Mm.
But I wouldn't worry too much about the nitty gritty of the detail. I think they just want to be able to see your job experience and your work
Mm.
experience and your public health experience, but I don't think they're going to be like, ooh, why does she format it to look like this way versus this way? I
Okay.
don't think that is what they're looking for. Oh, that's totally fine. I don't think they're looking for a certain GPA, at least definitely not. I don't think graduate schools really care too much about your GPA. I mean, don't
Mm.
quote me on this. Like, they just want to see that you've taken certain classes, and as long as you're not like doing like getting C's and everything,
Mm.
I think it's not like you're applying to medical school where they really care
Yeah.
about numbers and GPA. Like, I think, at least in my experience in graduate school, they care more about your experience, your personal statement, more of the soft, non-numerical parts of your application. Yeah, I usually like to give the advice of don't only apply to one program
Mhm.
because it's very risky. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's all a numbers game. Sometimes you might have the perfect application, but just they don't have enough spots or whatnot. So I always encourage people to apply to more than one school, unless it's like that is your dream school. You would not go anywhere else besides that one school, and you have a backup plan of being open to reapplying the next cycle to more schools after that. And generally that is
Mm.
what people do, is like, if they really want to stay in one city and that city only has like two programs, then I'm like, okay, fine, just you can apply there first and then expand your wings if
Mm.
that first round doesn't go as planned. I just know I'm very impatient, so for me, I would never want to like wait a whole nother year, but that's just my impatient personality. But some people who do have the patient personality, which is wonderful, then they can go down this more calculated route of, okay, maybe round one is my dream school, and then round two, the following year, backup is my, more programs. Yeah. Wow. I mean, not to disagree with your friends, but I kind of feel like you are passionate about what you want to do. You just explained to me this like wonderful experience that you're having in your current master's. As much as you want to like, gain as much experience as you can and be ready for the PhD. I don't really think there's like that much. Sometimes it's like nice to just and start your PhD training, because there's a lot that you're actually going to learn in the PhD program that is like the next level. Like there's only so much you can learn in a master's, and that PhD is going to take you to the next step. So I don't think it's necessary to get like a bunch of master's degrees and then get your PhD.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're getting a really great experience in your current master's program. If you want to do the master's, the second master's, just because you want to gain more research experience, maybe, especially in the US, I can understand that. But beyond that, I definitely think that you can start putting together your application for a PhD program and not have that too far off in the horizon. I think that might be closer than what you actually think, especially if you're getting all of this wonderful experience right now in your master's. There are a lot of people who actually apply to PhD programs without a master's degree and they get it. So I love getting this question because then I get to tell everyone that I had no statistical quantitative skills really. And I was working on my MPH when I was applying. So one, there are ways that you can boost up what I'm sure you've done some quantitative stuff, maybe just like heavy computational work or like, in-depth analyses, and that's fine. That still counts. The coursework you've taken, that also counts. I really only had a lot of qualitative experience, so I talked about that. And I said that the quantitative is what I wanted to learn. I barely passed, and I really mean it when I say barely. My MPH required statistical, course. We had to like learn how to use SAS and do all this stuff. And to this day, I still don't know how to use any of it. But I had basically like worse than the bare minimum needed to get into a PhD program. Still got into the PhD program with my given skill set. And then I did kind of have just maybe a little bit of a bigger learning gap. But once I don't know. And then, after going through that, statistical course, my first year of my PhD, and then applying it to the actual research that I started working on as a doctoral student, that's when it started clicking. That's when I started learning the quantitative skills. But this is just back to my message of you don't need to have like a ton of really strong quantitative background. You just need to have research experience. And that doesn't necessarily mean like heavy duty data analysis. So that's a great question. And I think something that a lot of people struggle with. Like you have a lot you want to say. And it's so great to hear that you have all of these different experiences and you have this desire to talk about it all, because it is such a great experience and it is all a part of who you are. And it's okay to have a bunch of different interests and that's what makes you you. But it's unfortunately not going to fit into like the word limit of a personal statement. So what I always recommend people to do is like, or not recommend, but just reassure is one, this is only one part of your application. Yes, it is one of the most important parts, but what's really important to also remember is that they do see your CV. So your personal statement should not be a summary of your CV. So all these great things that you're talking about, the other courses you did, your other interests, that will all appear on your CV too. And it doesn't need to be in two places. Your personal statement really needs to highlight that, like what you said, that more unified, cohesive story, bring together something about your personal background, then talk about your experience that's relevant to that, and pick something that also is related to what you want to do in the future. And that's how you kind of like pick, okay, what do I talk about in my, I have all these different interests. I have all this different experience. Try to like find a theme and then focus on that throughout your personal statement. And just remember, try to resist the pressure to include everything, because that stuff will just be in other parts of your application. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Like I said, just write. And then if you want to send me your personal statement, I'm happy to provide, again, the high level, like, okay, you can cut this, put more here, like, etc. Like, I can do a really quick skim of your personal statement and give you that kind of feedback. So no, I would say that any PhD program you get into and you're considering, they should definitely be paying you a stipend and covering all of your tuition. You should not be paying a penny to get your PhD. There might be some programs that don't guarantee funding for all of the years. And if that is the case and that is your only option, I would just make sure that they have strong supports to help you find that external funding by like grant writing, having those kinds of resources for you, etc. So sometimes it is inevitable. There are some programs that don't guarantee you that funding, but they might have like a system in place where they help students acquire external funding. And I would just that's just going to be on a case by case basis. Yeah. So my program, currently they guarantee 5 years of funding, but you do have to either work as a teaching fellow or do part-time research assistant work, which is pretty common in most programs, actually. So I would say that with a bachelor's, you can't really do that much. You might be able, I mean, obviously with each level of every education you get, it opens more doors. So, as a master's graduate, that does open doors. You'll be able, like all my friends who graduated from my MPH program at Yale with me, they're all doing great things. They're working in healthcare administration, consulting. Some are doing sort of research coordinator, working for nonprofits. A lot went on to more school, law school, etc. But I think at least in the job market, or like the job, like if you get a job with a master's, there sometimes is a ceiling that you hit that you can only surpass once you have a doctoral degree and like step into more like leadership, managerial roles, etc. My motivation for getting a PhD is I knew that I loved mentoring students. That's why I'm here right now on this call. And I loved research too, but I mostly love teaching and mentoring, and I wanted to become a professor. I think it's always been my dream to be some sort of a teacher, and this was my way of fulfilling it. And in order to become a professor, you have to get a PhD. Like you cannot become a professor with a master's. So for me, it was a very clear, I have to get a PhD. But if you're not looking to stay in academia, having a PhD will still open more doors for you than a master's. Obviously, when you enter a position, you're not like as entry level. Like I know a colleague who went off to do consulting after getting a PhD, and they they don't start at the same level as someone who graduates with a master's in public health. So definitely the PhD will open many doors for you regardless of where you go. But like I said, a lot of my friends are doing amazing things with with their amazing master's and public health degrees as well. So you can still do a lot with a master's. It is still a form of higher education. I think this is a great question to end on. Thank you for asking this. I definitely, as much as I really talk about efficiency and getting things done, I also really, really emphasize this throughout all my videos, is like the work-life balance and how important it is to, yes, make sure that you're taking care of yourself, you're spending time with your loved ones, you're exercising, eating well, etc. Like otherwise it just makes everything really hard. So I am flexible with my time. I know when I work well, which at certain times of day, and sometimes that is on different hours that people are shocked that I do work in. But then at the same time, my trade-off is that I get to, then take time off when I truly
Mm.
want it. Um, and I just set really strict boundaries for myself. I don't do work after a certain time of day, usually around like 7 p.m. That's like the latest. Lately, it hasn't even been
Mm.
that late. I just will tell myself no more work, no meetings, turn off the computer. I'll just sit in front of the TV for a few hours and watch TV and eat dinner, spend time with my husband, spend time with my parents. I don't know what it is. It's so really important to just have time where you're not working and, watching TV like Love is Blind, which, or The Bachelorette, uh, or, TV shows that you enjoy. Like you don't always have to be on and working. And this was something that I was able to do even in the busiest parts of my PhD program, like the week, like when I was taking a bunch of courses or the week leading up to my defense, like it's okay to take breaks. You have time to do everything. I think it's easy to kind of fall into the trap of feeling like you need to constantly be productive or constantly be working. But I think for me, I've really learned how to compartmentalize everything and plan almost like I set, what time every day I want to work out, when I'm going to see my family, when I'm going to do my fun stuff. And then I plan the work around that. So
Mm.
that also helps too. And instead of having work come first and then trying to fit everything else in. Um, yeah, like if I want to work out at 2 o'clock every day, I will not book a meeting. I will not do other work at that time. That is my hour for myself, and I'm very,
Mm.
very strict about that. And I think that is kind of what's helped me, stay balanced throughout, is keeping those boundaries, protecting the time that, I'm using to not do work. It's definitely possible to have lots of fun. I'm having lots of fun. And like, I actually barely did any work this past weekend. My husband and I, we went to the beach and walked around. We tried to
Mm.
look for some Halloween decorations. Spent some time, celebrating his aunt's birthday. I'm like listing all these things. What else did we do? And we just like we watched so much Netflix. Oh my God, we like watched so many
Mm.
good movies. We were saying that we were reflecting, we're like, wow, this was a weekend of really good content. So it's definitely possible to do what we do and still have balance.